So one tool that we know we're going to need in the future is scenario planning. These are the what ifs. We don't know if these are going to happen or if they're not. So we do need to plan for them. But we hope they won't happen. So let's look into scenario planning. So we need to know what it is. So it's the process of creating actionable insight by creating and considering what if scenarios that are realistic and believable, but also cover the realm of possible uncertainties. Yeah, they're possible uncertainties. Now, we're not trying to do a scenario for a hurricane that includes an earthquake at the same time. That would be like a perfect storm of events that no one can guess. But I'm sure if you call Las Vegas, they'll take odds on it. But, it would be quite a long shot. But why would we do this? Well, externally, the future is uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Today, the skies can be blue and the sun can be out. But tomorrow, the skies could be gray and it could be doing thunderstorms. We just don't know what's going to happen. And the pace of social and technological change is increasing. Think about the beginning of this year. Everything that's happened in the beginning of 2020. I mean, you can look at some of the memes that are out there and you can see, these huge phone book style books showing 2020 and 2019 is like no thicker than a comic book. Well, there's just so much that's happened this year. Technologies change, social changes. We don't know where it's going to end. And we don't know how it's going to turn out. There's a lot of people that are hoping it turns out one way. There's other people that are hoping it turns out a different way. But where's it going to end? And how is it going to end? So we need to also realize that success depends on responsiveness to change. So if we have something happen in our supply chain, we need to be responsive to it. And how responsive we are and how successful we are at that depends on our responsiveness. Internally, so we need to build a deep understanding of business environment drivers. We need to understand our business and others' businesses. Like, what's our supplier's business? What's our customer's business? What's our own? We need to figure these out. We need to promote the strategic conversations. What's important? Where are we trying to go in like 2 to 10 years? What's our strategy? How? And then we need to align strategic planning across the organization. We need to get everybody on board and heading in the same direction. Because if we're not heading in the same direction, it's just going to be chaos. So everybody needs to come together on the plan, understand the plan, and actually start working on the plan. And then finally, how are we going to do scenario planning? Well, we need to ask the correct or the right what-if questions. What if this happens? What if this doesn't happen? We just need to ask the questions. And then we need to engage the right decision makers. Who has the authority to make a decision on it? Who has the final authority? Who has some input? Who are stakeholders? Then we need to balance plausibility with out-of-the-box thinking. What can we realistically do that might be something what would be out of the box for us? What is unusual thinking for us? Can we actually do it? And then we need to create and communicate those compelling stories. People like stories. So if you can come up with a story on why they should support something, then you'll be so much better rather than just giving them the facts, because they'll get bored with the facts. So what is the process of scenario planning? Well, it's basically 3 phases. We need to identify the drivers that are causing us to think about these scenarios. Then we need to create scenarios. So if we are concerned of being on the coast of the United States, we'll say we're on the West Coast. Well, one of the drivers could be our location and maybe historical disasters that have happened. So, some scenarios. Well, we could possibly think of wildfires and earthquakes. Well, what are the issues that are from that? Well, the fires might be that we're in a area that is difficult to evacuate. And what we do is difficult to shut down safely. Well, the issues would be, how do we do that? How do we fix those issues? And then we ask the what ifs. Well, what if there was a fire? What would we do? Well, hopefully it's a little bit more than pulling the fire alarm and going to stand outside and then making sure your entire department's out there. But if it's a wildfire, well, maybe having people that are aware and can make the decisions be watching the news and can say, okay, we're not going to come to work tomorrow because based on what the news is saying, it should be in our area at that time. So you can look at all these what ifs and then make a plan, a scenario planning to try to mitigate them. So all of this can happen. And hopefully I would say you've probably done this before. You've asked yourself, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if my car doesn't start? How am I going to get to class? Okay, I'm going to Uber. Oh, I'm going to take the bus. You're going to come up with something. So you've already done some of these. But, in supply chain, we do this quite a bit. Because we're always thinking of worst case scenarios because we do not want to be the ones that fail. Supply chain is one of those functions, kind of like information technology, where no one thinks of supply chain until something goes wrong. And then supply chain is front and center because it's supply chain's fault. So hopefully you don't get in a company where they think like that, but it's a possibility. So this was topic 16. We're talking about the future of supply chain, operations management, all of that. We're trying to figure out where we're going to go as a industry, as a concentration, as a specialty. So the sky's the limit. Just like most of the other fields, the sky's the limit. And, there's quite a few technologies on the horizon, like blockchain. If used properly, we have all these food recalls that have been happening over the years. Well, it'd be nice to know that that farm supplied these stores, because you can use the blockchain to figure out that food went to these stores, and those stores can be contacted directly to pull it off their shelves. But wait, we can also contact those customers to say, hey, there's been a food recall. Do not eat that item. So that's just one thing that we can do, and that's that one thing based on supply chain can actually save lives. But if we implement supply chain properly, we will actually raise people's incomes because we'll reduce costs of items. We're looking to make things cheaper to procure. Well, that means we don't need to have such a high profit margin. We can keep our same profit margin, but the overall price for the good is going to be less. So that means somebody with a lower income can purchase that item. So their level of living might increase. Their dollar goes farther. And the same thing can be said in any other country. So whether it's you're using the pound sterling, the French franc, or the Swedish franc, or the Chinese yuan or renminbi, or any other currency, those currencies can go further and possibly bring somebody out of poverty into the middle class. Well, that was topic 16. I hope you enjoyed it, and you can think of so many more ways that supply chain could be, how it can explode into the future. And I enjoyed talking to you through all these topics of our book. So I look forward to seeing you at graduation. You guys have a great day, and I look forward to, like I said, seeing you at graduation.